Thanks so much for joining us for Getting Real, Bolster Your Business with Meaningful Relationships. And we'd like to thank our professional services sponsor, Tetraswat Capital Management, for their support of this programming. We'll get into today's discussion, so I will hand things over to our forum chair, Eric Reeves, for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual professional services forum event, Getting Real, Bolster Your Business with Meaningful Relationships. I'm Eric Reeves, Managing Director and Head of Private Capital Investments at Tetraswat Capital Management, and I'm also Chair of the Executives Club Professional Services Forum. I'm excited to welcome you today for a timely discussion about how to best build, nurture, and maintain private professional relationships as client service providers. I'd like to thank the members of our Professional Services Forum for helping us come up with this theme at our general meeting this past fall. And largely thank you to Megan for helping us focus our conversation. But before we get started today, I have one quick housekeeping note for the audience. This month, the Executives Club launched a brand new podcast. That podcast is called The Executives Exchange. You can see it on our screen. It's featuring CEO and founder interviews with top leaders in Chicago. Please take a moment, take out your phone and subscribe to The Executives Exchange. I haven't had enough coffee yet, guys, hold on. And subscribe to the Executives Exchange wherever you get your podcast. Megan is also dropping a link in the chat where you can learn more about it. Once you subscribe, make sure you enter the raffle to win a free pair of wireless noise canceling headphones, compliments of our podcast sponsor, Shure. Okay, so now on today's event, we hope you can keep your video on during the next hour, if that helps you feel more engaged. And if you'd like a more focused view, please put your Zoom on speaker mode, which is located on the top right hand of your screen. So now I'm going to move on to our speakers. I am thrilled, honestly thrilled, to feature Nicole White from Avis & Young and Teresa Wilton Harmon from Sidley and Austin. These two have quite an interesting origin story to their friendship, which they will get into in just a minute. Nicole joined Avis & Young in 2015 and serves as legal counsel for their strategic growth initiatives. She also serves as secretary of Avis & Young's board of directors and audit committee, and is a founding member of their Black Professionals Resource Group. She also serves on their global D&I steering committee. Prior to this role, she served as an attorney for the Allstate Corporation. Teresa is the managing partner of Sidley Austin's Chicago office and a partner in the firm's global finance practice. Teresa focuses on financial transactions and commercial law. She's been nationally recognized as a speaker on commercial law issues. And in recent years, Teresa has been honored on Crane's notable Gen X leaders in law and notable women executives over 50. As well as being recognized as a trailblazer in finance and banking by the National Law Journal just recently here in 2019. So I'll remind you of the podcast because that just came up on the screen again, so don't forget that. But with all of that, I'd like to say thank you again for joining us today. We have a good group, good participation from the Executives Club, and we're appreciative of that. And I want to thank Teresa and Nicole for taking the time out of your day to share your insights with us. And so without further ado, I'm going to put myself on mute and turn it over to Nicole and Teresa. Have fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric, for that introduction to this wonderful group. It's a privilege to be with you all this morning. So I thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to reunite with my good friend, Teresa Harmon. Teresa and I, feels like we've been friends for a lifetime, but we only met a year ago in connection with the Share the Mic Now campaign. That campaign was a collaboration between I Choose the Ladder and the Executives Club of Chicago. And through that campaign, it was intended to amplify the voices and perspectives of Black women executives and leaders throughout the Metro Chicago area, through the platforms of white female executives. And so Teresa and I were paired through that campaign. And I have to say, it just felt like I was uniting with a kindred spirit. We had such a wonderful time. And I think that podcast or that episode is still available on YouTube if you're ever inclined to check that out. But very grateful for the opportunity to reunite with Teresa here today and to have an opportunity to connect with all of you. So without further ado, I thought we could jump right in, Teresa, with just talking about a little bit about your professional journey, just so the audience has an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. You went to school in Alabama for both your bachelor's degree and your MBA before you landed in Chicago to get your law degree from the University of Chicago. So did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer, or was this something that you stumbled upon throughout your professional journey?
That's a great question, Nicole. And first, I just want to thank everyone for your involvement in the Executives Club. I treasure this organization. I'm so happy to be a part of it. And Nicole, it is a treat to catch up with you again in this context. You and I have kept in touch since our event last year, but it's fun to have a guided conversation with you again. I just thought you shared so much wisdom and insight, and we had such a fun connection before. I did go to Alabama. I grew up in Memphis, wanted to be a lawyer, didn't exactly know what it was to be a lawyer, right? I was the first lawyer in my family. I was the first professional woman in my family, but I found it intriguing. I liked the idea of becoming a professional. I liked the idea of law and justice. I was really, I liked school, and I knew I could stay in school a long time if I became a lawyer. So it was a pretty natural path for me. I went to business school first because I wanted to make sure that I had a degree from the beginning that I could use to go get a job if I decided not to go all the way through law school. So I studied business, got my MBA, and then came to law school at the University of Chicago. You know, my Alabama story, Nicole, is a relationship story in itself. If we want to focus on relationships today, I did not have Alabama on the radar screen when I was in high school at all. But my very good friend was going to visit the campus and have a very fun weekend in Tuscaloosa when I was in high school. And I thought I would tag along with her. And I got to the campus and I fell in love with it. It turned out a very good friend and a business mentor of my father's was close to a faculty member at the business school at Alabama. So he had us back. We climbed up onto the balcony of the business school that looks out against the beautiful quad. And he said, all of this can be yours. All you have to do is come here to school. And I signed on right away. So you never know when a relationship can turn into something that really is life-changing. And for me, it was that friendship with someone in high school and then a connection my father had that took me to Alabama and then took me down the rest of this path.
Wow, it's amazing how these little things that we don't even think about as being material to our story end up playing such a pivotal role in sort of charting our course. And so here you are today. One thing that I think is a little bit unusual by today's standards is that you've been with Sidley throughout your entire legal career, and you've risen through the ranks from an associate to a partner, and to now the managing partner of the Chicago office and a global finance partner. So what initially drew you to Sidley? Did you think you'd spend a career there?
Well, I didn't, right? I didn't know how long I would stay at the firm. I was at the University of Chicago Law School. I went to on-campus recruiting. Sidley looked terrific on paper. It had all the things that I wanted and the same things that I talk to our recruits about today: the best clients, the best work, connected and collegial culture where you really will build relationships in the course of your career, and a law firm that invests in you and in your professional development. That was what we talked about 25 years ago, and that's still what we talk about now, and it makes a difference. I didn't fully know how to evaluate all of that as a second-year law student, but what I knew is that I connected with the people that I met. And particularly my recruiters, they recruited me with college football in mind because they knew that I was a rabid Alabama Crimson Tide fan. I was recruited by a Miami fan, and at the time, Miami and Alabama were playing in the national championship and really vying to be the best team. Alabama was the best team. but it was a relationship building exercise, right? We wagered on the game. We talked about football. At my closing dinner to convince me to come to the school, he brought along a couple other college football fans who cheered for different teams. It gave us something to talk about. That wasn't just the work ahead of us or the recruiting task ahead of us. And it was really a positive experience. It was a great way to start at Sidley. And even in those moments, I built relationships that carried me through the course of my career, whether it was relationships with people who would later become sponsors and send work my way, mentors who would help guide me along the right path, or people who would give me opportunities in leadership.
Wow. And so what would you say has kept you there after all these years, and motivated you to seek out leadership opportunities and roles within that firm?
Nicole, I'm starting to feel really old in this conversation, right? So Eric started off by announcing my favorite award ever, which is the, Women Leading Things Who Happen to Be Over 50 award right there in the headline. And now we're talking about all these years at Sidley. It has been a while, I confess. And I think there are really three things that have kept me going that have been part of my experience. The first is relationships, and we already talked about that a little bit. The connections that I had to the senior mentors and folks who brought me on board made a huge difference. I have a really close group of friends within the firm, and we've all grown up here together and gone through the ups and downs of different seasons of life together. Those relationships make a difference to me. And then the new relationships that I'm building now, right? Learning from my mentees, learning from our newer partners. That's a very exciting part of being at my firm. I think the second thing that's kept me here all these years is this constant renewal that happens over the course of being a lawyer. I did not appreciate this. And I think it happens other places too. I'm not here to be like a brochure for Sidley, although I never mind doing that. I think it can happen in a lot of different professional careers. In terms of my practice, there's been this constant renewal. Whenever I felt sort of an itch, whenever something started to feel routine or wasn't new and exciting anymore, there would be a change in the economy, there would be a change in opportunity, and I was able to change my practice. So I started doing traditional finance work and lending work. The first deal that I ever did was lending to support a major acquisition in the retail space. I moved from there to securitization, including student loan securitization when that was very popular. Worked through the financial crisis when $50 billion worth of student loan securitization deals went into default all in the same week. That was a very busy, very intense period of time with a lot of new challenges and new ideas. Coming out of the financial crisis, there were wonderful opportunities to really work to rebuild the parts of the financial system we realized were broken or had more risk than people had identified. So I started working in the derivative space with clearing organizations, in the security space to really focus on providing liquidity support, default management, and commercial law issues. And now I've turned a lot of that into some new work for some wonderful fintech and cryptocurrency companies. So this idea that if you have a basis in the law and some experience, you can continue to turn that into something new with new clients, following the developments of industry has really helped for me. If I was doing the exact same type of deal I had been doing 25 years ago, I think I would be really itchy. I think I would need to make a change. And then finally, and at the time, this was unique to Sidley, although I think other firms and organizations are much better at it now. Sidley found a way to be flexible with me through all the different seasons of my life. I started as someone who wanted to be involved in the community, do a lot around town in addition to my practice. The firm helped me do that. I wanted to have a broad practice, even though at Sidley we tend to be sort of focused on particular practice groups, and the firm gave me great opportunities. I had 3 children in 4 years and a husband who was a public servant and out of town all the time. And the firm found ways to work with me through that. That included a reduced hours schedule that was new and cutting edge at the time. It included flexible work locations. It included on-ramps and off-ramps to different projects. And it included creative staffing and helping me find parts of my practice that might have more flexibility so that I could make sure that I could do the things that I wanted to do at home, as well as keep my practice going. And all of those decisions and moments along the way, Nicole, and you and I have talked about this, right? They made a huge difference in me being here for this season in my life.
Yes.
The notion that you can be anywhere for 25 years and not need to make some changes or not see some fluidity in it, that's just a misplaced notion, I think, for so many of us. Nicole, we've talked about this. Your mom was a lawyer, you're a lawyer, you've been through this drill too.
Yes. And you're right. We've talked so much about this, and we're going to touch on this a little bit later in this discussion as well, because I don't want to lose this point. We are going to come back to Sidley's approach to what I like to call talent cultivation, right? And the flexibility that they afforded you is really a gem unto itself. So we are going to come back to that. We'll bookmark it. But let's talk a little bit about your legal expertise in the fields of financial transactions, commercial law, and just really the nitty gritty in terms of your client services record. Big picture, how did the pandemic, right, and the racial and social justice movements of the past year change your perspective on relationship building and investment in your clients? And how did you evolve as a client leader as the circumstances of the country and the world changed?
Well, that's a great question. You know, we all had to evolve, didn't we? On the spot, we certainly didn't expect it. What I saw from my clients is that they wanted the best advice from people they trusted, from people with whom they had a history, people who could make them feel comfortable. I think that was especially true in those rapid response moments right after we all realized the magnitude of the pandemic and left our offices and had to recreate new lives remotely. It's easy to look back now and think about how smoothly a lot of the business issues really played out. But when I think back to the beginning of the pandemic and we were working on the federal government rescue programs, we were trying to figure out what would happen next in business. We were trying to figure out what would happen next in the markets. There was a very troubled and concerned tone to everything around us. And that solid advice made a difference. People also really wanted platforms and panels of experience in our client base that would help them respond to all the new things that were coming up along the way. We also found that clients were looking more to partner advice immediately, looking for more senior guidance immediately, which is not always what we see in a day-to-day practice. One of the things that was really different, Nicole, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this one too, is I think people were also a lot more open with each other, right? So I'm back in the office now. This is professional Teresa, but during those first moments, I was home in my cozy but not fancy office. My dog joined conference calls. I learned so much about all the people that I was working with. I learned more about my clients and even my own colleagues because I could peek behind the curtain. And now everybody's got their room rater, Zoom screen backgrounds, bookcases set up, but we were all pretty rough right at the beginning. And I think that just opened everybody up in a really neat and authentic way. And that authenticity became important. I also found clients just really wanted someone to listen to them. People needed someone to listen to their work concerns, all the challenges that they were going through professionally, problem solving, responses that they needed to come up with. But also just listen to what else was going on. And more often than not, client calls started and sometimes ended with a conversation about how things were going. What was the newest development? What do you think is going to happen? How is your family? How are your kids? It was a very open and really relationship focused set of conversations at the time. I think people appreciated, at least my clients, some gentle, stable, and reliable sort of advice. There was a lot of adrenaline. There was a lot of rapid response. It felt really good when we had a call when we could catch our breath and really think about how this was going to be okay and how we were going to work through a particular issue. I'll tell you one more thing, Nicole. I learned so much from the junior associates, the folks who were so much younger than me, in that process, right? And that includes my clients and that includes folks here at the firm too. It also includes my teenagers. I learned so much about their ability to be resilient, to not rely on the way things had been for so long, to see so many opportunities that were coming their way from a technological change standpoint, but also to really be touched and authentic and thoughtful and profound on racial justice issues as we went through last summer. We all had something to learn from everyone in the conversation. And I thought that was really powerful. One of my roles at Sidley, in addition to running our Chicago office, is I'm co-chair of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So I spent a lot of time with our team, especially last summer, and that continues. We felt a lot, we listened a lot, and then we tried to think about what we were going to do as individuals in an organization to support each other and our clients, but also to support our community. And as a law firm, where really the foundation of everything we do is based on justice, we realized there was a lot that we could do and a lot that we needed to do. And that some of that grew out of those early relationships and conversations and quiet moments on Zoom.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think this is so spot on, because what I saw as well is that as a consumer of legal services, so Teresa working at Sidley is really a provider of legal services. And, I work for Avis and Young in their internal legal function. So we are a consumer of legal services. And I would say that my relationships with our legal services providers were strengthened throughout the pandemic in these extraordinary times that we were experiencing, because we started to engage more in ways that we never had, that were truly connected to our humanity, right? How we were weathering the storm, sharing the load, what was going on. And I could not agree more that every conversation began and ended with some sort of discussion around, predictions of what was going to happen, how we were faring. And so that, I think, that personal touch became the cornerstone of those client services relationships for sure. Did you notice a major difference in the way that you were thinking about longstanding client relationships, as well as building new business?
That's a great question. By the way, I love this idea, Nicole. You just said it, right? Humanity. I don't know how many times I have said the word humanity when I teach our lawyers about client relationships, but we should. It should be part of the discussion every time. And I think it brought that out a little bit more. Did I notice a major difference in the way I was thinking about clients and prospects? The tools were different. The way that we responded to things were different. And certainly the prospects and the potential of different clients or different opportunities was different. But I don't know that there was an overall change for me in terms of the nature of those relationships. It's kind of normal for me to talk about families, to talk about kids, to talk about the community. That's always the way that I've approached my client relationships. So it wasn't as much of a shock to me because of the way I grew up at Sidley. I was used to working at home. So that wasn't as much of a shock, but not too different. What do you think, Nicole?
I don't think that it was very different because I've always been a very socially oriented person. So that's always been important to me in any relationships that I have with service providers. And as we prepared for this topic and talking to you, what I realized is that you were probably, of all folks, very well equipped for sort of this cultural shift that occurred, because this has sort of always been in your nature. So can you share with us a little bit? You shared this with me. I want you to share it with this audience, but what you shared with me in terms of how investing in a client relationship. So this is an example of a time when you invested in a client relationship and it really changed the trajectory of the business that you were navigating with that client.
Sure. Well, look, there are a handful of stories, but one of the good ones I think really ties in to what happened as we all went home during the pandemic. At the point that I was really building a large part of my business, I had young kids at home, and it turns out my best clients, the ones with whom I was closest, had young kids at home too. And we would find ourselves griping on calls at 6 or 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night about how hard it was to try to juggle all of our work together and how we were missing bedtime again. And I realized that we were all in the same boat and that we should have a pact. So I had a pact with clients across a few different banks, all of whom had young children. that we would not work at all between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. And if they needed me after 5 p.m., they could wait until after bedtime. That was fine with me. It was better for me. And we could work a second shift starting at 8 o'clock, and we would do whatever else we needed to do. It was a relatively simple thing that came from opening up and being authentic with each other about what our situations were. But it really cemented some strong relationships with clients who ultimately kept bringing back work over and over again for several years. It really made a difference for me as I was building my practice.
Mm. And I think I recall you saying that even to this day, a lot of those same clients from that same time period, however many years ago, they're now in lots of different roles and lots of different functions, but they still look to you as sort of that centering voice of legal advice and counsel and wisdom. So that's something that has served you well for many years since then.
Well, look, I think that's a great formula, right? Is we see different people at different points in their careers. And this is true across professions. It's true in accounting and consulting. And it's certainly true for us as lawyers. We always think of the client as the institution or the organization. And I'm part of our Office of General Counsel. And I'm always telling people when they're doing their engagement letters, the client is the organization, but our relationships are with people. And what I found over the years is people I've been really close to at one organization bounce from one place to another. And right now, in this moment of rebirth in the economy, Nicole, I don't know what you're seeing, but I am seeing it in every direction. I have one really terrific client that is young and growing as an organization. And there I work with 3 different individuals, each of whom used to be at a different client of mine. They all met together when they started working for this new company. But I've worked with all of them in the past. And it's a terrific relationship moment, right? Because I have an automatic connection with them. We have a shared history and shared stories with each other. But we also have these touch points from things we've done in the past. Sometimes I'll have to have a conversation just with one of them, bounce the other 2 off the phone and say, this is like what we did together, X years ago when you were at this company. And let's talk more honestly about it while it's just the 2 of us. Yeah. Because I don't want to share any of that information with the new colleagues, but it does help. And getting those personal relationships and getting behind the scenes into somebody's life a little bit can make that more rewarding on a personal level. But I also think it makes a stronger connection.
Absolutely. That was so fascinating to me when you shared that. And I know that a lot of the folks here on this Zoom today can relate to that, right? They're also maybe not in the legal profession, but they're also in a professional services function and maybe experiencing some anxiety around sort of creating those new client relationships, cultivating the ones you have, building new business in a world that will never look like it did in 2019. So do you feel like the value that you're providing to your clients or the approach that you've been taking to new relationships is changing as a result of this sort of remote hybrid workforce that we're starting to see a lot of companies move to? What's your outlook on this?
Well, my outlook is good. I feel very positive about the prospects ahead. I think there are real opportunities for lawyers and for other professionals to jump in and build on this next layer of relationships for sure. I think that we've got to be really thoughtful about where our new opportunities are, and we have to be thoughtful about retooling the way we approach client service. I sit in Chicago. From the beginning, I have represented clients who are in New York or who are on the West Coast. I'm used to that. This version of client service, which can include a Zoom call or a WebEx call, is actually better for me. I've met more of my clients face to face, or at least spent time with them face to face in the pandemic than I did prior, because clients who are out of town, we didn't used to have the habit of popping on video to have a conversation. We would just talk on the telephone. And now this video interaction is so natural to everyone. Everyone's tooled up for it. And it really allows us to connect better with people who are outside of Chicago. Nicole, I'm going to say this, and it's contrary to the friendship you and I have built. So
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
so listen to it with that filter. Okay, this is not all the time, but I have found during the pandemic that a lot of the relationships that have been strongest by video are the ones that had an in-person component first. Not all of them, but a
Mhm.
lot of them. And so part of the key, I think, going forward, to keep strong relationships and avoid this Zoom fatigue that we have sometimes, is to get that booster shot of in-person time when we can. And if there is someone we've been working with from a start, and it sounds like I'm coming to see you, Nicole, but if there is someone that we've just been working with during this period and we haven't seen them in person, let's find that moment to do that. Let's create that in-person chemistry. And I think when you do that, it can last a very long time with videos and emails and other kinds of conversations in between. I'm not sure that people who stay fully remote are going to have the same spark in some of these relationships as people who get out and about. And I don't know what you're seeing. I'm actually really interested to hear from the group on the phone at some point. But, you know, Nicole, I think there's a first mover advantage to those of us who realize when our clients are first ready to see us or to see other people. And there's a first mover advantage to becoming physically present with them at that moment. Whether it's traveling, whether it's going out to dinner, whether it's a full-blown meeting or conference, or whether it's something simpler. How do you feel about that? I am enjoying these new moments of being out and about.
No, absolutely. And I love that you describe it as sort of a booster shot, right? I think that is such a perfect metaphor for understanding that, yes, there's some value that this remote world has offered to our relationships, but there's still a very personal human connection that I think we really all crave. But I would have to agree, despite all the talk of Zoom fatigue, I cannot overstate how wonderful it's been to be able to put faces with names and voices. So our internal legal team consists of lawyers and professionals throughout Europe and Canada. And it was not until the pandemic when we started meeting through Zoom that I actually met some of them, that I actually got a chance to see their faces. And so now I actually feel a much deeper connection to them than I did before, because we had never met in person, face to face before. So I could not agree more. I also believe that the outlook is quite bright. And I think that the remote environment will offer a balance between all of those things, which is incredibly important. I think everything is about balance. All or nothing has never been, I think, a good approach. So let's talk about the other side of this. What are your clients telling you? Are they identifying needs that look different from you and your colleagues, and sort of how are you navigating that?
Yeah, I do think there's a different set of issues being presented, and I do think some of it comes out of this disruption. Our clients want a set of legal services that looks more modern and that's faster and quicker and more nimble than ever before. They want responsiveness, they want cost effectiveness, very focused on cost. They want to make sure that they have the firm that can address the hard issues, but that can also address them quickly. And in this environment with so much changing, I think that takes a really strong level of quality and communication within an organization to be able to get to the right answer from the right person and get it out to the clients quickly. There is this a continued request for higher levels of expertise. More clients are doing a lot of work inside. When they're coming outside, it's because there's a particular area of expertise they just don't happen to have on their team. An area is new enough, they want a sense of what others in the market are hearing, or a project is just large enough and a heavy enough lift that they want some help trying to get it done. I'm also seeing a very strong and a very positive emphasis in diversity on teams. I love this. We're seeing a greater push than ever from our corporate clients, not only to offer diverse teams, but to be able to provide support for diversity and inclusion across our organization. Our clients, Nicole, also want some extras along with the core legal services. And different clients ask for different things. It could be CLE, it could be some, it's probably telling too much. Don't write a list of things you're going to go and ask Sidley for if you work with us. But you know, people want CLE, they want some bonus, services, some freebies tossed in with the services that we provide at our rates. They want real access to thought leadership. They want access to programming that's available online. They want training and development for their teams. They want secondments. They want to partner with us on pro bono work, which I really love. Those are great opportunities to build relationships and feel good about making a difference in community at the same time. It sort of ties up everything we've been trying to focus on the past 15 months or so. And clients also expect and are asking for a lot more focus on data and details. When I started practicing, people said, don't let the lawyers touch the numbers, because that's always dangerous. But now we really need to have numbers at our fingertips, everything from our cost effectiveness to the diversity numbers for a particular team, to how quickly we're responding. The other thing that I'm seeing is just this sense of wanting to feel that services are being provided in a fresh way. So I know it sounds funny to talk about something being modern, because we've been modern for a long time. But there's a new way of doing things in every part of our life. We've changed the way we shop. We've changed the way we use technology. We've changed the way we communicate with each other. And it's important that we think about how we can change the way that we provide legal services, whether it's using technology in a new way, staffing in different ways, building off of our platform. There's some neat opportunities. Nicole, I love talking about what clients want when you're a client.
Yes. And just as
right?
pause, if there are questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and interrupt us at any point in time. We definitely want to make sure that we're getting to any questions that might be top of mind for all of you. But yes, as a client, I couldn't agree more. I think we're asking for all the same things, particularly more of an emphasis on diversity of teams, right? And not just diversity for diversity's sake. We don't want to see, a law firm say, look how great and diverse our team is, but then when it comes to staffing actual matters and transactions, the team looks very different, right? We want to actually see them staffed on the matters. And I will say that two of the most significant legal matters that I had that were sort of ongoing throughout the pandemic, both of the teams were completely gender and ethnically diverse, which has never happened in my, 13, 14 years of practicing. I've never seen that before. That was a first. And contrary to what a lot of law firms had told me in the past, well, I shouldn't say they've told me this, contrary to what I think a lot of people believe, having a diverse team did not come at the expense of quality, right? I think a lot of people tend to think that diversity is a cost of doing business, when in fact, diverse teams can and often are just as, the quality of the legal services is just as good. So I could not agree more that that's something that we're starting to ask more of our legal service providers as well. How do you think changes in technology and employee culture around technology will be an asset to the future of relationship building and management?
Sure, I think that's a great question. I think that the addition of technology is going to change the way we connect with each other. It's going to change the level of responsiveness that we're able to have and that we're expected to have. And I think it really will allow us to provide better service. I go back to the early days of practice, right? And when I was just starting practicing, when I was trying to work remotely, I didn't have a BlackBerry yet, let alone an iPhone. We could barely dial into our system to try to get emails from home. That was a big development. The amount of responsiveness and change in the way we practice between that period and right before the pandemic was really significant. And I do think that it was an improvement. I think it allowed us to do more for our clients. We're at a new level now. We can have faster and better communications, but it's more than that. We're starting to think about how to incorporate artificial intelligence into our practice. We're starting to think about how to incorporate machine-driven activities rather than lawyer-driven activities into some of the work product that we create. There are some real opportunities to change what we can provide in terms of our service. And in the legal side, and I'm sure this is true in other professional services as well, there are new models popping up. What is it to be a law firm today? Are we all in the same city or are we distributed? across the country as a distributed law firm? Are we working together for one set of clients? Are we really available on a platform for clients to come and go? There's so many open questions. I think it's a great time to be in this area. And I think it's a real time for some entrepreneurs to think about what we can do differently going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And you also, Teresa, you do a lot of coaching and teaching as a leader at Sidley and really in the broader Chicago landscape. Can you talk a little bit about what advice you'd give generally to people who want to be standout in client service within their organizations?
So I think the key is to exceed client expectations every time. If I'm meeting expectations, that's fine, but exceed expectations in a way that really gives value to the client. But my add-on to that, Nicole, is always to do that while being your authentic self. I mean, that's always been my view. I can only be me. If I try to be someone else, I'm not going to do it well. And I think somehow this journey that we've been through together, through quarantine, through upheaval, through coming to grips with all of the challenges and problems we have in the community, and so many people and so much talent we care about that's marginalized. I think all of that has really hammered home to me that I'm just going to be myself. And it was okay during this period of time. We were all a little bit more ourselves. And as you said, we were all a little bit more transparent in our humanity. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that as being a key part of client service.
Yes. Yeah. So we're rounding towards the end of our time together. So I would be remiss if I did not give you an opportunity just to brag about yourself a little bit. Why do you think you found success in this career? I have my thoughts, but what about you is uniquely qualified to lead an office of 1,500 people and manage the needs of countless clients?
That's the question I ask myself every morning when I wake up and try to figure out what we're going to do today. Nicole, I'm surrounded by really exceptional people. I am so lucky and blessed to be where I am. And I'm not going to brag on myself for sure, but I think I've been lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. And that happened several times along the way, right? I picked the firm that supported lawyer moms in really unique and earth-shattering ways when a lot of firms just weren't doing that yet. I picked the practice and was at the right moment, like Forrest Gump, right? When there were massive changes in the economy and huge opportunities for finance lawyers, whether it was electric utility deregulation, securitization, the financial crisis, and all the things that happened after it, to now fintech and cryptocurrency. I've been in the right place to be able to take advantage of those things. And you know, my style, my way of doing things when I became managing partner, it was always going to be focused on two things because it's just who I am, right? I was really focused on our connection to our people within our organization. And I was really focused on making sure that Sidley was doing its part as part of our civic community to make a difference in Chicago and to really use the resources that we had to make our community a better place. Mm-hmm. I had no idea, and the people who picked me for this job had no idea that the past 15 months in our town would really be focused on exactly those two things. And that those would be the two things that would be most important for our organization to succeed. And so right place, right time.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I think you're not giving yourself enough credit there too. But I think you had a lot to do with that success as well. So what's your proudest moment for you or your team over the last 18 months?
For me, it was when those first few weeks, when we all moved out of our office and moved 1,300 people home on a dime. Our lawyers were used to working from anywhere. That wasn't hard, but a lot of our professional staff had never worked remotely. And the efforts that really went underway to make that happen, and then to build a platform of responsiveness on really serious cutting edge issues for our clients, working on the government rescue programs, building a COVID-19 resource center, helping not only our paying clients, but through a partnership we had with Pili, helping not-for-profits across the city figure out how to respond to the pandemic environment and those issues. That was really neat.
Yeah, I have to say that I think this season was wrought for us to have some of these proud moments, right? It's full of proud moments. And, when I look back, I think that, at least for our company, my proudest moment was really how we navigated this season, right? In particular, all of the social justice issues that we were sort of thrust into as a company. Never before did companies and businesses have to weigh in on such sensitive issues, but I was really particularly proud of how Avis and Young met the moment and how we really started to encourage that dialogue within our organization and within our ranks in terms of how we can be a more inclusive company, and just how we can enhance the social consciousness of our organization. So I think when businesses look back on these last 18 months, I think many will see that they as well have many proud moments. What about personally? And would you say that there were any growth moments or learnings that this time has impressed upon you?
Yeah, I think most people will have that, right? I won't get too personal. It was definitely a journey of faith for me to get through these 15 months. Spending more time at home with my teenagers who were figuring out how to navigate this as high schoolers, and actually having my husband home more was a treat too. I learned a lot about our family and our time together, and the strength that my kids have. It was really neat. And I focused a lot, Nicole, on gratitude. You're right. It was a challenging time. It was a really tough time, and really hard things were going on all around us. But every day it was easy to find things for which to be grateful. And that helped. It provided a lot of strength getting through.
Yeah. So we're at a great breaking point to see if there are any additional audience questions that we can answer. Anything burning in your minds. I'll check the chat function, but feel free to also come off of mute if there are any questions that you would like for Teresa or I to address. And I don't see any in the chat function. So Teresa, I do have one more question for you, just sort of leaving us on a high note. What about this era of disruption has changed our lives for the better?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we are more connected to each other. I think that we know we can get through a hard time. And I think what I'm seeing all around me right now is a hope and an optimism and a new energy that we haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
I also think we're better having gone through the conversations that we've been through over the past year, being more open about diversity and inclusion and equity within our organizations, and not only the value of it, but how real issues are for people we care about, and how important it is for us to be allies, to listen, and to continue this effort that we've started in earnest at a moment of real focus, but that needs to be part of something we continue going forward. Nicole, what about you?
I have to agree. For me, and this is news for all of you, but in the midst of the pandemic, my family, we picked up and left Chicago. We moved from the Metro Chicago area to Houston. A very big move for us, but we have a lot of family in Houston and in Dallas, and in the midst of a pandemic, more than ever, I think we realized how much support we needed from those that are closest to us. We didn't have any family in Chicago, and my company, Avis and Young, and my husband's law firm were incredibly supportive of us relocating. I think probably had it happened a year prior, they may not have been as supportive, but I think the pandemic taught us that we can do hard things. And so we have since relocated, and we've been able to, I see my parents every weekend now, which is just amazing. They get to spend time with their grandchildren. I had only had the opportunity to see them once or twice a year before that. And so this has just been tremendous. I also feel like I've had more time with my children, right? Before, I was, between my commute and my workday, gone 12 hours a day. And I get an hour in the evening with my kids before bed. And even that felt rushed, right? Because there was so much to do in that hour, bath time, dinner. it never felt meaningful. So this is the first time in my life that I've actually been able to have more time with my kids. We're both primarily home-based at this time, so I get to pick my kids up from school every day. We get to drop them off. It's just presented a lot of opportunities that we never would have had before. So I have to say that there have been some changes and some disruption that's been for the better, for sure. I'd love to hear from the group. Is there anything that you guys have seen or experienced throughout this pandemic that you hope stays, that you want to see continue, even as things start to return to normal a little bit? And you can feel free to just come off mute or drop it in the chat. But I know Teresa and I can't be the only ones that have seen some good things that we hope last.
And fair warning, when I teach at the University of Chicago, I call on people.
Hi, my name is Ruben Abarca. One of the things that I like about the or silver lining, I would say, is that from my dining room table, I attend events in the Northeast, in Silicon Valley, in Texas, back here in Chicago, like this great executives club event. So I would love to be able to keep, normally I have to fly or just say, well, I can't afford to go to all these events. So hopefully there's some type of virtual component that will be kept as part of some of these events going forward, so we can continue to take advantage of some of the learning and networking opportunities across the country.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm grateful that now that I'm in Houston, that I was still able to be part of this program through my my professional home base, which I still consider to be Chicago. So I couldn't.
And didn't have to fly back.
Exactly. So yes, I could not agree more, Ruben.
Yeah, I want to echo what Ruben just said. I think it's been so much easier to, at least for me, to do business development outside of Chicago. I have a lot more clients now in the UK. I've been able to do conferences overseas where normally that's a trip I can't do because I got to work too. So, and I want to echo something Teresa said earlier. I think from a client standpoint, it's just been so much more efficient and cost effective. I'm an attorney, so a lot of times we have to go to state court and it's going to be for 5 minutes, but you have to be there for an hour. And I think clients are very happy that their bill is not an hour's worth of time and only a couple of minutes. Or kind of to echo the business development side, you know, you may have a group meeting with folks in 5 different time zones where normally everyone's flying in. Well, it's way better to have that virtually. And so I'm hoping we can kind of continue this hybrid model, especially that I've seen over the last months since people have got their 2-week mark. So
yeah. Thanks, Amit. Well, thank you all. I'm gonna pass the torch back to Eric. This has just been a wonderful dialogue and opportunity, and I again just want to thank all of you for the invitation. Eric, I'll turn it back to you.
Hey, I don't see everyone on the screen. It looks like we have a good group of people, but I just want to say good morning again to everyone. And what a great discussion we just heard. Thank you to Nicole and to Teresa for sharing your insights and best practices with us. And I'd ask you all to give them a round of applause and say thank you for your time. Much like all of you, I spent the last year creating new relationships, building skills, missing some of the old things that we used to do on a routine basis. I think what struck me the most about this conversation today, both from Nicole and Teresa, was the humanity. I think in a weird way, us having to revert to our own quarters and get on Zoom allowed us to see the humanity in each other and the authenticity of what it's like to negotiate these issues of wanting to spend time with family but still being productive and having to think of creative ways to reinvent yourself, as Teresa mentioned, or think of then ways to get to know yourself and then get to know your client. or having customizable strategies for a variety of different approaches, because it's going to take all of that in this new world. And I do think the hybrid's going to stick. And so you guys raised some very interesting, invigorating conversation. And I appreciate that. I hope it was helpful for all of you all. You know, the authenticity and the humanity that you guys brought to this conversation was unique. And I hope we can all take that away from this experience and go back to the Executives Club community and say, you know, what a fulsome conversation we had. So keep an eye on the Executives Club website for more upcoming virtual events. In particular, I hope you can join us on June 8th for a marketing forum event, and it'll be discussing digital marketing trends and technology. You can sign up for that at the Executives Club, executivesclub.org. I think Megan's going to drop it in the chat. There we go. Megan, with 4 minutes to spare, did we miss anything?
Covered it all. You guys are the pros. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah, people like it when we end early. That means they'll come back to the next one.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks, Teresa.